Thanks for joining us today on Dairy News and Views from the ISU Dairy Team. I'm Jen Bentley, Northeast Iowa Dairy Field Specialist. And today I'm here with my Extension Dairy Team colleagues, Dr. Philip Jardon, our Extension State Veterinarian Specialist, and Dr. Gail Carpenter, our Assistant Professor and State Extension Dairy Field Specialist, as we discuss today's topic with our guests. So welcome back to the podcast, Dr. Jardon and Gail.
Happy to be here, Jen. I wish we were talking about something a little more uplifting, I guess, but always happy to be here and chat with you guys.
Yeah, thank you, Jen.
Yeah, and so today we're here joined on the podcast with Jurgan Ehlers, our Bureau Chief within the Iowa Department of Agriculture and Land Stewardship Dairy Bureau, as well as we talk about today's topic. Many of you know that on March 25th, the USDA announced that it had detected highly pathogenic avian influenza in Texas and Kansas dairy herds. And so today's podcast, as we're recording it, this is April 1st at about 8 o'clock in the morning. So as we're recording this, we know this is an evolving situation. And so we're just trying to stay current with the information that we're given at this time, providing resources to our livestock farmers or Iowa producers. And so here today, we're just trying to get more information and have a discussion with Dr. Jardon and Jurgan Ehler as we talk about HPAI today. So Dr. Jardon, as we start this discussion, maybe you could just give us a brief background of what and where this HPAI was found and a little bit more about the announcement that came out on March 25th.
Yeah, I'd be glad to. So for a couple months now, the producers and veterinarians in the panhandle of Texas have been dealing with an unknown disease. It affects the cows by coming on pretty sudden onset. Decreased feed intake and then decreased milk production, obviously. It seems to hit a herd pretty fast and pretty hard. Interestingly, there's no deaths reported, and morbidity is not that high, meaning the percent of the cows that are affected tends to run around 10% from the reports that the people on the ground have reported. But of course, if you have a couple thousand cows and 10% are suddenly very sick, you kind of notice that. One interesting sign was that as the cows got down in production, their milk got very thick. It didn't really look like regular mastitis, it looked more like colostrum. And so that's what prompted some of the pathologists to actually look at the avian influenza as a possibility. And so they actually found it in the milk, which is the first time it's been found in milk. And actually the first time it's found in a ruminant was just a couple months ago in a goat in Minnesota. The disease seems to run its course after about 3 weeks. Some of the cows come back and some don't, but there seems to be not many more cases coming. So at first we thought maybe it was a kind of a different presentation of something like winter dysentery, which most producers are pretty familiar with, which we think is caused by a coronavirus, but that didn't pan out. And they looked for all the regular things we usually think of diagnosing. And then the pathologists looked for avian influenza and found it, the high path avian influenza, in samples from both Texas and from Kansas.
So since Texas and Kansas, it's been found in a couple other states, and New Mexico, I should say too, right? It's been found in Idaho and Michigan. Has it been found in Iowa yet?
It has not been reported in Iowa. There's reports of a couple other states too, not been confirmed yet in some of those states. The one in Michigan, though, has been confirmed as the high path avian influenza. And we don't really know how this is spread. In birds, we've known, had this disease going for years, and we know that the waterfowl, the wild waterfowl, are one way it spreads from area to area. And it's likely that's the case here, but it's very possible that there's also some cow-to-cow spread, which we think we can see from the Michigan herd that brought some animals in from out of state that may have affected the animals around them.
So would it be fair to say that we are very sure that it spreads through waterfowl, migratory birds, and we are at least a little bit sure that it spreads cow to cow.
I think that's fair. At least she could be conservative on how we approach it, and think that it's certainly possible to be spread more than one way.
So to prevent spread, what should dairy producers be thinking about?
We'll probably enhance biosecurity as it comes to animals, meaning mostly birds in this case, but also rodents and cats and dogs and other animals that might spread things around. Skunks, the small mammals. Those are possible ways you could get into a farm too. When you think about the migratory waterfowl, when they go up and down the country, right, when they're going back to the north, they'll land in fields and maybe lagoons and things like that. It may get spread into the barns though by the local birds, the starlings and pigeons and so on. So anything we can do to help control the birds is probably a good thing. Although that's really a tall order. It's really hard to keep every bird out of every facility.
What else should we be doing besides worried about wildlife? Should we be thinking about clean clothes, double booting, sanitation, limiting non-essential personnel? What other steps can we be taking?
Yeah, I think all those things are good things to be thinking about. Just enhanced normal biosecurity. So yeah, non-essential personnel, at least till this calms down and we know more about how it's spread. It makes sense to have the people wear clean coveralls. And then since this has been found in milk, I think milking hygiene should be considered. So we don't know how it spread from cow to cow, but since it spread, we think in fairly high numbers in milk, shed in fairly high numbers in milk, it probably makes sense to have a good control over that. And certainly I think if you're feeding hospital milk to calves, so this milk is, because it looks abnormal, is diverted from the human food chain into the hospital pen milk that's sometimes used to feed calves. That should definitely be pasteurized. And Jurgan might make a comment here about it, but this virus is not all that hardy in milk and is easily killed with pasteurization. The pasteurization temperatures are set at a higher temperature for things that are tougher to kill than this virus. Jurgan, do you want to make a comment there?
Yeah, that's for sure correct. I mean, the Dairy Products Control Bureau would like to remind producers and consumers that regulations for pasteurized milk have been in effect for 100 years this year, and that milk and milk products that are properly handled, properly stored at temperatures of 45 degrees or less, and pasteurized at the proper legal temperatures, you can be very cognizant that your dairy products will remain safe and a nutritious food source. So on the farm side of things, we would definitely recommend enhanced biosecurity purposes with our bulk milk haulers, make sure that we are taking proper sanitation as we transfer from farm to farm, sanitizing the wheels and tires of our trucks, doing the proper hand cleaning and sampling of product while we're on the farm, because we are making direct contact with the milk as we're sampling that product. And so those extra biosecurity steps that really we should be taking into account every day as we do our job. Now is a good time to review our processes and make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing.
Should our consumers be concerned about possibility of this transferring into their food supply?
They should not. HPAI is an influenza A type virus. It's readily killed with the legal pasteurization process. And so again, as long as we're properly handling that product and pasteurizing it at the approved legal temperatures, regardless of the product that we're making, it should remain safe to the consumer.
Thanks for those comments, Jurgan. And just as kind of a follow-up with that, Dr. Jardon, as we talk about, food safe handling and milk quality, and we recognize the symptoms, how does that relate to working with our veterinarians, the ones that, are coming to our farm weekly or bi-weekly? How much more communication should we be having with our veterinarians?
Well, I think certainly quite a bit in this situation. I think especially if animals are coming in from out of state, you work with your vet to know if they're coming from an area that might be affected by this. And whether they are or aren't, it probably makes sense to be a little bit cautious and maybe bring them back but we don't really know, but probably at least 21 days early and segregate them somehow. I don't know if I want to use the word quarantine, but put them in a spot that's not, they're kind of exposed to the other cows in case they are shedding something. It seems like it's very possible that if leaves a herd in Texas that's infected, you could bring it into your herd that way. So be very careful doing that. So far, Idaho, I think, is the only state that has put restrictions on moving animals from those affected areas. But there may be more as it comes forward, but that's kind of premature. Most states have decided to be a little more cautious or a little more conservative on the suggestions there. But certainly it makes sense to be a little more diligent on that and to watch. And then I would have a lot of communication between the areas that the cows are coming from. If there's any this particular syndrome happening in the cows in that area or on that farm, that might be that's very good to know. So to maybe put off bringing them in for another month till it goes through or something like that.
And is there kind of a checklist of biosecurity that producers can follow, or a resource that they can look at to say, okay, I'm doing this. I know I'm, following this guideline. Is there a resource we can direct them to?
Yes, there are. And I think you can put links in the show notes. Yep. So there's several good resources that way. Yep.
The other thing I think producers need to be working with their veterinarian on is if they see symptoms in their herd. So we said it hasn't been found in Iowa yet, but we want to be, of course, vigilant, not just on biosecurity, but if we see any symptoms, what should producers be doing if they suspect they have something similar going on in their herd?
Yeah, well, you contact their veterinarian, and the veterinarian should contact IDALs to let them know that samples are being taken. Blood samples, milk samples. If there are any deaths, there's tissue samples, and there's a list of which ones to take that the veterinarian can get access to through IDALs. They're keeping track of that and what needs to be tested, and also look for, because we know from when this happens in birds, sometimes there's death of birds that are in the wildlife. So we'll see more dead waterfowl or some dead local birds, and sending some of those in would be good too. That might help us get to the bottom of how it's spread and which animals it's in. And if there's any mammals that are around that seem to be sick or affected, they should be sampled also.
And can you just run through again what the symptoms would be that they'd be looking for in their herd?
Yeah, so it's mostly a very rapid decrease in appetite. So you'll notice a decrease in rumination if you have rumination collars on, or just the cow's not eating very well, and in milk production, and it happens fairly quickly. The reports from Texas say that there's kind of a mixed bag on the temperatures. Some of these cows run fever, some don't. Also, whether the cows have diarrhea or not. At first, that's one reason we thought it might be just an aberrant presentation of winter dysentery. So it seems like some have a decrease in the stool, some a little pasty, sometimes a little bit loose, but nothing like we see with winter dysentery, typically. And then the milk being looking more like colostrum, so thicker and a little bit more yellow color. Now, of course, first we thought that might be just from the fact that the cows aren't producing as much, so it just gets thicker, but it's probably beyond that. It might be part of the syndrome there.
Well, we appreciate your comments, Dr. Jardon and Jurgan, on the podcast here today. And just as a reminder, this is being recorded on April 1st. So if there is any new information, we'll keep subscribers up to date on recordings. We will be doing a follow-up podcast shortly to record information from the Wildlife Services with USDA, talking about migratory birds and just how biosecurity works within the wildlife services there as well. So stay tuned for that podcast. And any last comments from the group here this morning?
Yeah, I'd like to make one. I just want to, the producers and the veterinarians in Texas have been dealing with this for a couple months, not having any idea what's going on. And I think we kind of owe them some gratitude, because if it does spread to the rest of the country, we know more about what's going on because of them. So I think sorry they had to go through it, but I think what they've recorded and what they've taught the rest of us, I think is very going to be useful for us as we get into the, if it does spread and we see it, we'll know more about what to expect and what to look for and how to handle it. So I really appreciate them for what they've been through and their willingness to share with us what they've seen.
Yeah, I
And
think we
would
want to
say-
keep the folks on the front lines there, the veterinarians who've been doing a lot of work, but also the producers who have been managing this. We want to keep those people in our thoughts, of course, and appreciate all of the work that they've been doing.
And IDLES is extremely appreciative of ISU Extension for taking the voice on this new disease, if you will. You've done a great job of getting this out to the people to understand what's going on. So we are very appreciative of that.
Thank you,
Speaking
Jurgan.
of,
We do have a website. So if you go to www.extension.iastate.edu/dairy team, that's where all our dairy extension resources are. And we do have a quick link put up there now. It's called HPAI in ruminants. So if that's on the main page, and if you click on that, that'll take you to any updated resources. So we'll have the the most current news releases that are coming out, any additional information, and any biosecurity resources that are being updated. That'll be all listed there. So you can go directly to there to get your most current, accurate information as this continually evolves. Well, again, I want to thank everybody for being on the podcast here this morning, and we look forward to visiting with you on the next Dairy News and Views from ISU. Thanks, everybody.
thanks all.
Thanks, Jen.
Thank you.